His name was Mehen, not that it mattered. The name had been lost to the sands of time, disappearing beneath the weight of millennia, forgotten forever. Mehen did not remember his name. He would not respond to his name if someone used it to address him. There would be no dull remembrance, no moment of confusion, no involuntary twitch of metallic limbs. By any sane assessment, Mehen no longer was. Only his shell remained, an eternal prison of flowing, living metal, and ancient cogitations that had ground his weak soul into dust. There was no individuality left, nothing to distinguish him from Thutmose or Hori or any of the other soulless golems. Mehen was simply a warrior. The Necron phalanx marched through the forests of Karok, their formation broken by stumbling roots and thick, wrapping vines. The trees embraced and intermeshed, a dense obstacle of trunks and branches. The sun muted to pallid rays through the overlapping canopy. The forest was noisy with life, the tweets and calls of avian fauna, the sudden scampering of panicked vermin, the low whine or scuttle of insects navigating through the trees. Mehen's optical visor endlessly identified new life signatures, confusing the cogitations of his mechanical mind. Automatic processes quieted the noise. They applied filter matrices and sorting codes designed to prioritize military threats. There were none. And then, a moment later, they were attacked. Sudden bursts of movement erupted across Mehen's optics. Scores of long-limbed Xenos bounded towards the phalanx, never touching the ground, ricocheting from tree trunks. Pulse-optimized rifle rounds rained down from every direction. Defense cover protocols screamed through Mehen's cogitation. But there was no cover. Not from an enemy that was everywhere. Mehen stumbled. His optics were filled with data, wiry Xenos muscle, an array of twitching, cranial quills, a stubby, painted beak, the swinging mass of a bladed rifle. His pale existence was ended by a blow to the head. The blade of the Xenos rifle hit with enough force to smash straight through the living metal and into his internal matrices. Data banks shattered. His cogitations managed only spitting error codes and remote retrieval protocols. Denial responses flashed internally, sparking briefly across Mehen's approximation of consciousness. And then, there was nothing. Shaper Kyrek spared a glance to the Necron warrior he had just felled, making sure that the mechanical monstrosity was destroyed. Searching, intelligent eyes took in the Necron's sparking cogitation and the dimming lights of its metal optics. Satisfied, the Shaper looked away and assessed the battlefield. He was pleased. 50 Necron warriors had been taken down in a matter of seconds, the kindred falling upon them in a perfect ambush. Only a few of the enemy had managed to shoot back, sending atomizing gouges through thick tree trunks and a handful of Kroot. The kindred were already cannibalizing their fallen brothers and sisters. Together, they would preserve the genetic treasure of the dead. Kyrek squatted by the Necron warrior's body, his leg muscles wound tight and ready to spring. He examined its flowing metal skin and gave it an experimental prod with a narrow, bony finger. Even now, the necrodermis was trying to repair the damage to the Necron's head, like sludging water draining into the gaping hole of an electrified sewer. Kyrek studied how the metal reformed and swam, slowly but surely remaking the construct. An outsider might have thought that Kyrek was entirely entranced, but his quills were constantly twitching and rustling, drinking in pheromone and pressure changes from his surroundings, his senses hyper-aware. He felt the rest of the kindred gather around him. He smelled the curiosity and hunger in their pheromone scent. It was a risk. The Kroot's stomach was robust. It could easily digest metal, but Kyrek did not know what, if any, genetic material was contained within the flowing necrodermis. The Shaper knew well the history of the Kroot. There had been many misfires, many dead ends. He leaned closer to the reforming Necron warrior. His quills picked up nothing from the construct. No pheromone secretion, no sweat, no perceptible movement or change of pressure, despite the metal's flow. When he took a deep sniff through the nostrils in his beak, there was no trace of poison, no taint like the genetic stench of the Tyrannid. Not much of a smell at all, a scentless metal, and the whiff of burning databanks. The warrior was almost fully reconstructed. It twitched, motive systems coming back online. Kyrek hastily removed its head from its body. He shot danger pheromones through the air. His kindred followed his example with the other bodies.
Yes or no?
Ch'Chok asked. She towered over the rest of the kindred, wiry muscle mass compounding and twisting on itself into slabs of powerful meat.
You are impatient, Ch'Chok,
Kyrek chided. Ch'Chok shrugged.
Yes or no?
Kyrek clicked his beak in irritation. 3 years ago, he had directed Ch'Chok and a few others to eat the biggest orc Kyrek had ever seen. Now, only Ch'Chok remained of that experiment. The orc eaters had proved to have an unfortunate habit of getting themselves killed in stupid ways. The Shaper had been directing Ch'Chok to eat patient hunters ever since. He still hoped to temper the greenskin aggression with some manner of cunning.
It looks strong,
Ch'Chok urged. Her quills shifted greedily. Kyrek felt other quills tremble in sympathy. Feeding pheromones flooded the air and agitated the local wildlife. Birds scattered from the foliage, disappearing into the sky.
It is strong,
the Shaper agreed. Even now, living metal was shifting from the Necron's neck, vainly reaching for its head 5 feet away.
It endures. But would we endure it?
He knew that Ch'Chok did not understand. It didn't worry him. It was Kyrek's sacred duty to guide his kindred, not Ch'Chok's, and it did not matter if the Shaper's words were deemed cryptic or mysterious.
Ch'Chok can endure any fight,
the Kroot responded.
Ch'Chok is best.
Kyrek frowned.
Ch'Chok will be quiet,
he said. He clacked his beak, sending his quills dancing in an aggressive posture. Scolded, Ch'Chok slunk away. The Shaper glanced up at the sky, watching how the motes of light struggled through the trees. He saw tiny spores and pheromone trails in the air, multivariant and fragile.
The gene strand is many varied,
Kyrek said. His kindred hunched and listened. Even Ch'Chok lowered her quills in respectful silence.
It is the sacred adaptability, manifesting both our strength and our weakness. The strength, because it allows evolution and growth. The weakness, because it brings the vulnerability of the gene curse to the kindred strand.
The Shaper's quills shivered in contemplation.
And yet, the vulnerability of the kindred strand exists to provide the endurability of the species. Sacred evolution is a testimony of divine failure, constituted by the missteps and the gene ends as surely as the boons. It is the gene quest. We are strong because we understand this and participate fully, experimentation and all.
He could feel the rising pheromones of expectation, the quivering of 100 sets of quills.
Eat, kindred. Eat the living metal. We continue the gene quest.
He leaned down and took a huge bite of his fallen enemy. His beak cracked and broke apart Mehen's metal shell, and the feeding began. The kindred returned to the village, directing empathetic pheromones to settle the disquieted wildlife. Kyrek could feel his digestive system churning, acids breaking down the Necron metal. It was not entirely pleasant, but the Shaper pushed it from his mind. The Kroot settlement was well hidden. Primitive huts of wood and bone sat high in the canopy of the trees. Subtle, ground-directed loudcasters drowning out the chatter of the Kroot with the chirrups and calls of local fauna. There were no gantryways or paths between each building. There was just a small platform porch on the front of each hut. Kyrek leapt onto a mid-hanging branch of a tall tree, his legs releasing like tightly coiled springs. He landed perfectly, adopting a hunched posture as the rest of the kindred continued their way upwards. The Shaper examined the ground, ensuring none of them had left signs of their passing. He needn't have worried. His kindred were skilled enough to avoid disturbing local flora, and too light-boned to leave anything in the way of prints. The Shaper whistled, holding out an arm. A prism bird flew towards him from the canopy and settled on his extended limb. It was a strange creature, native to Karok. What seemed to be feathers at first glance were in fact bunches of translucent quills, each one brittle and sharp, and refracting the meagre sunlight into a rainbow of colours. Kyrek squawked at the creature. His quills smoothed back as he admired his pet. It chirruped back, content to use the Shaper's arm as a perching branch. In the higher branches, the kindred greeted their nesting partners and their young. They touched beaks and huddled, quills angled towards one another as they shared their touch and warmth. A new Kroot had been born in their absence, the conjunction of Torok and Oraka, the latter's beak still stained with oily blood and reproductive fluid. The infant was covered in pre-molt feathers, squawking noisily for regurgitated foodstuffs. Kyrek trilled happily, but the contented feeling did not last. The Shaper sniffed at a sudden flood of danger pheromones spurting through the air. The prism bird sensed it too, taking to the sky with a startled call. Kyrek's gaze followed its flight and settled on the huts above. It was T'Chok. The muscular Kroot staggered from her hut, swaying dangerously on the edge of her platform porch. She was clutching at her gut, a low whine whistling from her beak, her quills bristling erect from her scalp. Kyrek's eyes narrowed. He could see movement behind T'Chok's skin, an almost imperceptible writhing pushing out from her stomach. T'Chok screeched, and her abdomen split open. A sloshing mass of metal spilled from the traumatic wound, mixed with blood and stomach acids. Kyrek snapped into action. He bounded through the trees towards his kindred, clearing dozens of meters in a matter of seconds. He landed just in time to catch T'Chok before she fell from the platform porch. The dying Kroot clapped her beak in agony, quills flattening against her skull. Death pheromones leaked into the air.
I am sorry, T'Chok,
Kyrek said, and broke her neck in one powerful snap. The liquid metal still leaked from her body, spreading into a wider pool across the platform porch. The Shaper took a step back, lengthening the focal points in his eyes to magnify the horror of what he saw. He clacked his beak in agitation. It didn't look quite the same as the necrodermis that had struggled to rebuild the Necron warriors. It was more diffuse, almost gritty, as if some of the chemical bonds had weakened and come apart. Kyrek thought he could see individual movements within the slopping mess. Tiny, scuttling movements, hidden by the optical illusion of a seeping metal. He did not have time to consider what that might mean. Danger and fear pheromones filled the air, more local fauna scattering in empathetic terror. All around him, Kyrek's kindred were stumbling and retching, clutching at their stomachs as the skin writhed and churned. The Shaper chittered. He felt an awful pain within his own gut, a pressure that threatened to burst the stomach lining and spill digestive acids across his internal organs.
Purge!
He cried, his vision swimming.
Purge the bad meat!
Kyrek retched, but only a few drops of vomit dribbled from his beak. The Shaper could feel the Necron metal clinging to his flesh, latching onto the stomach lining when he regurgitated and heaved. Panicking, he clawed at his abdomen, digging into the skin and drawing blood. He heard his kindred screeching. His peripheral vision was full of dying Kroot. Torok, an experienced ambusher and level-headed veteran, stumbled from his platform porch and broke his neck below with a sickening snap. Dependable Gota hunched into a regurgitation position, seeming to have some success before her throat exploded outwards beneath a torrent of living metal. Quick-witted Dorato shrieked as his stomach swelled and split like a grotesque balloon. Kyrek fell to his knees just moments before his own abdomen tore open. Stomach acids burned across his internal organs as blood washed with living metal over the stained wood. He died seconds later, pheromones registering terror and shock. The Shaper slumped forwards, face planting into the stinking mix of blood, digestive acid, and Necron metal. The nanoscarab crawled along the wood, vainly seeking out structures to repair and restore. There were hundreds of thousands of them on the platform porch where Kyrek had died, limited repair protocols providing little direction as they bumped and jostled into one another's path. Without powerful magnification, they appeared as one mass, like a strangely acting liquid, expanding and shrinking in constant motion. But, in truth, they were many, each obeying their own individual protocol, each protocol dysfunctional and useless in the organic-rich environment of a Kroot village. The nanoscarab reached the metal of Kyrek's rifle blade, sensors in its feet testing the substance for solidified necrodermis. Disappointed, it moved on, crawling along the rifle and onto the Shaper's claw. Endlessly, the nanoscarab tested and searched, feedback loops of disappointment refreshing seeker imperatives through its automated mind. It reached Kyrek's eye and crawled through a tear duct, continuing its search through dying matter and liquid stores. Without realizing, It made its way back to where it had come from, the Shaper's stomach, temporarily excited by the discovery of a clump of intact Necron metal. But the mass was already dissolving into nanoscarabs, liquefying and breaking apart as its elements registered that the matter was insufficient for reconstruction. The nanoscarab followed the crowd, burrowing through flesh and making another tiny hole in Kyrek's body. Like this, they would continue, until the Canoptech spiders arrived and organized them into scarabs or the new structures of Necron shells, if that day ever came. For the nanoscarab that had once made up the shell of Mehen had existed for countless millennia, and would continue to function for countless millennia more. It would carry on forever. Or, at least, until the stars themselves went out, time ceased, and all matter became nothing but nanoscopic ash. And, even then, the nanoscarab would be one of the last things to go. The nanoscarab scuttled along the wood, repair protocols driving it onwards. It sensed organic matter beneath its many feet. Disappointed, it continued its search.
Thank you for listening to this video from the Archive Tower. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.